afternoon, Committee on Finance will come to order. We are on our 1:30 agenda. Welcome. First up, we have Senate Bill 512. This is relating to SNAP. First up, it is DHS.
Good afternoon, Chair. Scott Nakasoni with the Department of Human Services. Department stands on its written testimony and support, and I'm here to help answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Office of Planning, but I understand Office of Planning will not be in attendance. So I will move on to Department of Health.
Thank you, Chair Luke and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing SB 512 HD1, and the Department of Health stands on its testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is American Heart Association.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke and Vice Chair Cullen and members of the committee. You have our written testimony. We provided comments on the bill. The bill originally was designed to provide additional funding to sustain the programs that have been developed over the last several years from the previous funding the state gave and was matched by federal and local grant funding. We hope that there might be an opportunity to at least provide some additional funding again to sustain that program that was in the original language. So if funding can be found, we appreciate that being added back in, just so we can build sustainability and go for another federal grant match. And then we also recommended language, potential language to better define healthy proteins, because there's different types of proteins, not all healthy. And we feel it's important that that be defined so that we're not promoting unhealthy foods to the Bucks program recipients. I'll be here if you have any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next up is AARP.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, members of the committee. AARP stands in support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. Okay, thank you. Next up is University of Hawaii.
Yes, good afternoon. Walter Boyne, Associate Dean for Research and CTAR. We stand on our written testimony in support of the intent of SB 512. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Good afternoon. This is Alexis for HFIA. We stand on our testimony in support, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Local Food Coalition.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. The Local Food Coalition stands on its written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ulupono.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, members of the committee. Micah Munikata here on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'll stand on our testimony in strong support of this measure. Appreciate the committee hearing this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next up is Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. Jalen Murakami with Hawaii Public Health Institute. We stand in strong support of this bill, and I just wanted to emphasize that, in 2020 alone, the Bucks food retailers issued $978,000 of incentive discounts, and this translated into $1.9 million in local food purchases. And that while there's no current appropriation in this bill, any investment that the state can make for this program could be amplified, with matching federal and possibly philanthropic funds that would directly help our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Hawaii Appleseed.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Daniela Spoto, Hawaii Appleseed. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii Food Bank.
Aloha, Chair Luke and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Chelsea Takahashi. I work for the Food Basket. We're the administrators for the DeBucks program. We strongly support this bill because we know DeBucks serves as an economic stimulator for the food and agriculture industry and is helping our SNAP households to stretch their food dollars for local fruits and vegetables. So thank you for your consideration.
Hawaii Food Bank, Mario Torbio.
Not present.
Okay, thank you very much. Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Good afternoon. Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, members of the committee, Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on a written testimony in support. Thank you, Chair.
Next up is Hope Services.
Aloha, thank you for hearing our testimony. We stand in strong support of this bill. We are the largest homeless services provider on Hawaii Island, and as such, several of the people that we serve receive SNAP benefits. And this is a great way to help feed people. Also, by helping the local economy, we're going to ensure that more local business owners, local farmers, and food providers stay secure, financially secure, and are less likely to become in need of our services as well. We're also excited about this bill because it supports the environment and less shipping in food from the mainland or elsewhere, and also promotes food sustainability. So thank you very much, and we hope you support this bill.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Kobayashi.
For Department of Human Services, is there an opportunity to get more federal dollars if we have specific appropriation?
I think that actually Hawaii Food Basket might be the better people to answer to that because they actually administer the program.
Yes, there's actually stimulus funds that are going to be introduced. It'll probably require a maximum 10% match. So if a state appropriation were made, it could be matched with those stimulus funds that are will be released soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to Senate Bill 263. No one signed up to testify for this bill, so let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 579, Mason Industry.
Hi, hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Finance House Committee. Appreciate accepting my testimony and acceptance of this bill and this SPURB to be created. It's something that needs to be supported. I think that we need to actually create more, not just supporting the farmers. It's also creating more job opportunities that can create added value to the farmers. So I greatly appreciate the time for this. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Peruso.
I have a quick question for Mason Industries. Is it?
Sure.
So I am wondering if you have gone to the neighborhood board or the community with this proposal?
Which community board?
Haleiwa, North Shore.
I
Is it the plan
actually
to
been,
build the center?
Yeah, I've been in one of the meetings, but the for us in the whole committee itself, this is not just for Haleiwa. Haleiwa is just a chosen site because we just recently took on a lease there at the Haleiwa Town Center, and concurrently we're opening up a store that is providing a space and place for vendors, especially with justifying the cause and needs. Meaning that like a lot of the farmers that go to like the farmers market. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort literally to just set up, not just making the product, but setting up the product and actually going out to selling the product. And instead of them creating all the drive time and all the setup time and breakdown time, we want to give spaces for the added value product for actually be able to be there in a store where we can actually put it out there. Our justification for that is not just that's just the starting point of a store, because concurrently we have other locations that we're right now negotiating to open up storefronts. But we're not just looking for the domestic consumption. We're actually looking and pushing forward towards export market. And the export market, they're like with bottled water, for example. The leading export product out of Hawaii is shrimp. And third, it used to be water, bottled water. And most of the bottled water manufacturing is that's where the key elements of us, also looking to expand for better value for our product, because if you look outside of Hawaii, actually Hawaii made goods. Like for example, I was actually in Vermont back in 2009. There was
I don't mean to cut you off, but you're heading in a direction that doesn't have much to do with what I was asking. So I'm really interested in where you are going to situate the facilities, the processing plant, because I think that's what this SPURB is meant to be used for, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so along those lines, I understand that you are just going to have a retail front in Haleiwa. Is your processing facility also going to be located there?
At this time, there's no space for it to actually be there. There's a few places we're looking at that. One of the places we're looking at is mostly on public trust lands to actually help to assist in creating leases, even for the state to actually generate more income. And because part of my background, if you really look, I was the one who actually designed a direct lease process that helped the DOT sustain a position. And part of which was actually one of the things what we were pushing was we actually offered back in 2016 that we offered to develop a location. And part of the location too was also manufacturing production. We're looking was at, we look at the Kona airport. We're looking at also down in, if there's a possibility is also in Kaka'ako, in the area of
So just to clarify, you're coming to the legislature for asking us to issue a special purpose revenue bonds, but you don't have a location for your facilities yet. And is that correct?
Correct. If you look at the sense of manufacturing, but the thing is, if you look back into how to getting into a lot of these things, is that it's needed to be supported. Because look at Love's Bakery, for example. We could easily put.
I think that you've answered my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but we could easily put this purpose.
We have other questions. Representative Wahlberger.
Thank you again for Mr. Mason. I'm interested in you describing exactly what you intend to manufacture. I understand that you're interested in domestic sales and export, and that agricultural products are involved, but what specifically are you looking to produce?
It's not just us in Pacific for us producing, it's supporting the farmers that are actually creating jams, jellies, they're making teas, Kona coffee. There's a variety of things that most of these farmers cannot even afford to actually have a certified kitchen, let alone a certified location to actually manufacture or even bag their products. These are the kind of things that we're looking at generating at certain areas but we're looking at the points, not just the manufacturing, we're looking at the whole gamut of it all. But where we're at in the manufacturing point of perspective is not just us in particular. Like, for example, Love's Bakery. Love's Bakery just pretty much went out of business. They're not.
Love's Bakery went out of business because the owners sold their property and millions on their property sales. So I don't think that that's an equivalent.
But I do understand.
But for $100 million in loans and tax-free loans, and we'd like to know exactly what that's for. And that's not clear to me right now.
Okay, so to make it clear for you is that, for example, Love's Bakery could be actually a company that's saved because they're actually a manufacturing company. And the part that even if they wind it down, is now that 180 jobs, union LIW jobs, literally left, and now it's in Portland. And the part that really comes down to the situation of manufacturing, because I came from Hamakua Sugar, and the sugar industry is gone. They actually employ thousands of people. And now the thing that really comes down to the support of that, the government used to support even the sugar side, but the party asking the request of this in the manufacturing side, because this is the kind of industries we need to develop. And because you look at Japan, 10 years of manufacturing production with no resources became the second largest economy in the world. China is also 45 years took that.
Are you looking to export water? Is one of your endeavors to export water?
I did the consulting work for Mahalo Water and in Japan. And the part of the relationship with that was that the way that we're structured, we're a domestic company. The thing is, most of these a lot of manufacturing companies or investors are coming from outside. Therefore, like, for example, Mahalo Water, or even some of the other companies that are owned from foreign interest holders, is that the money is actually earned there. The wholesale prices are paid here, but the retail prices are paid there. And therefore, that money stays there. But if we look at our own domestic perspective and we manufacture our own and we take it all the way outside to retail, we can get paid more beyond than just the wholesale side. We're already owning interest in outside. It's like when, like an octopus and having arms out there and actually making revenue standpoints.
Thank you.
Just like, for example,
I appreciate your description.
Yeah, my passion for this is that it's an industry.
Mr. Mason,
thank you.
You just see if other people have questions.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1421. First up, it is DBED.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Dennis Ling on behalf of DBED. DBED stands on its written testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Oceanet.
A written testimony in support, and Dr. Patrick Sullivan can answer any questions. He is on the Zoom call also.
Thank you very much. Next up is HTDC.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand on our written testimony supporting the intent of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 76. First up, it is Chair Payne of Board of Education.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. The Board of Education opposes this bill, which would require the board to prioritize candidates for the Superintendent of Education position with certain minimum qualifications and establish a desired qualification. The board opposes legislation that restricts its ability to hire and effectively manage and oversee the superintendent, and we respectfully disagree with both the content and the principle of this measure, because it is essentially the legislature dictating a management function over which the board clearly has authority and responsibility as envisioned by the state Constitution. Further, requiring the superintendent candidates to have at least 10 years of experience in the Hawaii Department of Education severely limits the candidate pool for a position that already has difficult time recruiting strong candidates. This measure would have prevented the board from hiring past superintendents who together have led the department. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the board.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Sayama.
Thank you, Chair. My question's for Catherine Payne. So just to confirm, is there any minimum qualifications when the BOE considers an applicant for the position of a superintendent?
When the board is preparing for a superintendent search, as we are now, the board will identify the qualifications that are the priority qualifications for the superintendent, and it's done through a process. It's not just the board. We will reach out to various community groups and internal and external within the department. And I wasn't part of the last search, but we're basing our future search plans on the processes in the last search, but we are making some changes, and the needs of the department will determine the qualifications that we are looking for.
Okay, and so what, I assume that those needs of the department change from year to year, but given that this is the Hawaii DOE that the superintendent will be managing, I suspect that there would be some minimum requirement for the applicant to have experience within the DOE, Hawaii's DOE, is that correct?
That is not exactly correct. We've hired a number of superintendents in the past who have experience in Hawaii, but not within the Department of Education. We are hesitant to put too many parameters around the search, the candidates we're searching for, because we would like to have as many people who might be qualified to apply. But I can tell you that one of the strong considerations for the superintendent that has come out in community discussion in the past and certainly in the present is the need for someone who has a real grounding in the values of Hawaii and the understanding of our unique system here, because this is a system that is unique in the nation, and it may not be necessary to have come up through the Department of Education, but it certainly is likely that it will be necessary for someone to have deep knowledge about what Hawaii means to everyone who lives here.
I'm glad that the board is considering that kind of connection with Hawaii. Chair, no further questions.
Thank you, Representative Martin.
Hi, you probably have heard this already, but I've heard from people in my district in the field working in the school system that they believe that the format gave a preference to fast-talking mainlanders because the answers to the questions were timed, and local people who maybe were more thoughtful and slower getting started were disadvantaged in that format. So I'm hoping that you'll consider a format that would not be, would not disadvantage our local people. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And even now, as I'm hearing things, these are things we will take into consideration as we define the qualifications that we're looking for.
Representative Kobayashi.
Just a comment. If the DOE cannot find a suitable superintendent within the Department of Education, I think that says something rather negative about the capacity of the department to develop its own leaders. And I think that this is why this bill is here, to prioritize the possibility that the next superintendent would be someone from within the department. I know that there are companies that specifically go about grooming people to climb the ladder. I think that this should be something DOE should think about. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Any other questions, Representative Bronco?
I was wondering more about the process in the search process. Do you folks put out a press release and see who applies? Do you folks use a headhunter, a local headhunter, or a headhunter from the continent? Could you describe more on the search process?
Well, the search process previously is what I'm aware of, but did not participate in. A mainland firm was hired to conduct a national search. We are in the process right now of defining that. Our first step is to identify a process for selecting an interim superintendent, because the superintendent will be leaving us in July, and the process for hiring someone will take longer than that. So we have a first step that we are working on right now, which will be presented at our board meeting in next week. So I just, I don't want to speak specifically to that, but we do have a group that is working on that search, on the process for selecting an interim superintendent. We will establish a search committee on the board in May. So we're right now focused on the interim.
Then as far as finding this this firm that is on the continent, how did you folks find this firm? Are they experienced in finding educational executives or executives in general? I'm just kind of curious of how this firm was found and used. And
Representative, I really can't speak to that because it was more than a year before I was on the board. I know that there was outside group that paid for this, but I don't have the details of how that firm was identified. If you'd like me to get back to you with more information on that, I'd be happy to do so.
I kindly request that. And just kind of going with this line of questioning is just, I feel that when we talk about the unique and diverse culture of Hawaii, and that's something that's going to be integrated into the search, I think sometimes we kind of pay lip service to that. And let's be clear that many of our students in our public educational system come from our Native Hawaiian community, also come from many minority populations. So I think it's very important and be very specific that we need a superintendent that will be understanding of the unique situations facing Native Hawaiians and minorities in the most diverse state in the nation. Mahalo.
I would like to say, Representative, that I couldn't agree with you more. I absolutely concur, and my career has been working in those communities, and it is very important to me and others on the board that whoever is leading us have those understandings and real commitment to this place that we live in.
I would even go a step further. It would be great to see someone actually from our communities as well, from our diverse communities. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 242. First up is the Board of Education.
Thank you, Chair Luke and others on the committee. The board appreciates the intent of this bill, but does have comments and would require public and charter schools to offer education in computer science.
Oh, it is the right one.
I'm sorry, should I stop?
Oh, no, somebody was not muted, so go ahead.
The board does propose legislation that diminishes the board's power to formulate statewide educational policy as envisioned and established by Article 10, Section 3 of the Constitution of the State of Hawaii. Our primary concern with this measure is not necessarily one of content, but of principle. While the board supports the intent to elevate computer science education, we believe that the legislature should leave the responsibility of determining educational requirements to the board as a bedrock of state educational policy. We do note that the board has already adopted computer science performance standards. So thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Next up is Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. I'm Terry Ushijima, Interim Assistant Superintendent with the Department of Education, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Christina Kishimoto. We stand by our written testimony. We support the opportunity to increase computer science education offerings at all public schools and ensure all students are prepared with the skills and experiences needed for our modern digital world. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on SB 0242 SD2 HD1.
Thank you. Next up is Hawaii Kids Can.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. Hawaii Kids Can stands on a written testimony in strong support of SB 242, and we highlight the following points. Act 51 in 2018 sets a successful precedent for this bill and the legislature's partnership with the Hawaii DOE and BOE. Given everything we've been forced to learn as a community over the past pandemic year, the value of computer science and digital literacy has never been clearer. Economically, an investment in computer science education is an investment in Hawaii's future, specifically a more diverse, future-proof economy. This generation of students will have many more options to work remotely from Hawaii for jobs in coding, cybersecurity, and IT. The future is here, and companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have already committed $300 million nationally to support computer science education. SB 242 will be a big step forward for Hawaii's keiki and a signal to local and global partners that we are committed to building a deep pool of STEM talent. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Next up is code.org.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, members of the committee. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify. Code.org is a national nonprofit focused on the opportunity for all students to learn some computer science education in K-12. Code.org stands on our written testimony in strong support. And we commend the state of Hawaii for making incredible progress with high school computer science courses over the past couple of years, as well as with the K-12 computer science standards. However, many elementary and middle schools still do not teach computer science, and we know that this is incredibly important for students to have those early opportunities to learn it so that then they choose to opt into it when they get to high school or chances to choose careers for themselves. We aren't trying to change requirements for all students and mandate that students take computer science. Instead, we just want to ensure that those students have the same opportunities no matter which school that they go to. We believe that this legislation is essential for providing more students with those opportunities, and we, again, strongly support. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next up is Celeste Endo.
Aloha, awinala, and mahalo, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I wholeheartedly stand by my written testimony, and I wanted to highlight a story from it. During one of my first years as a technology teacher at QKS, I surveyed my students to ask them what they wanted to learn in technology classes. A fifth grader gifted me an answer that has shaped my teaching since. She wrote that she wanted to learn how to get a good job. Well, I thought, a fifth grader who was already thinking of working. Later, I heard from her teacher that her family was living out of her car. Every night, her father would worry that when she had to use a park bathroom. The daughter was deeply concerned for her family and seriously wanted to help. Well, I found out from my friend Chad that the best type of job right now is for them to learn computer programming. That it pays a lot and it's a high demand job. So from then on, we really try to support computer science. And I wanted to highlight that, code.org and their partners have been offering this magnificent curriculum, and it's been helping our students. And early childhood coding has strengthened our CS and our upper grades. When we track our code.org student progress, upper grade students who have been learning coding since kindergarten far surpass code.org levels completed and lines of code written compared to peers without earlier CS experience. Mahalo Piha for your consideration of SB 242 SD2 HT1. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Lastly, Oceanet. Okay, thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Kobayashi.
For the Board of Education, I would suggest that the Board of Education propose a constitutional amendment to clarify the current language about education policy. I would agree with you that education policy should be with the board, but without clarification as to what that means, we have had over the decades numerous bills at the legislature that would have required the teaching of many different things, from X number of minutes of physical education to requirements for STEM classes to requirements for foreign language, Hawaiiana, sex education, financial literacy, et cetera, et cetera. I think that without clarifying what is in the Constitution, we will be seeing this kind of legislative attempt in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Kobayashi. I've taken note of your suggestion.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 516. First up, it is Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. I'm Terry Ushijima, Interim Assistant Superintendent, testifying on behalf of Dr. Christina Kishimoto, Superintendent. We stand by a written testimony in support of SB 516 SD1 HD2, the attainment of industry recognized credentials by students in high school as part of a quality career and technical education program is a goal of the department. We will partner with the State Board for Career and Technical Education and utilizing the statewide longitudinal data system. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii Kids Can.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Hawaii Kids Can stands on a written testimony in strong support of SB 516, and we highlight the following points. Earning an industry recognized credential has been linked to numerous benefits for students, including the probability of graduating from high school on time, and an increase in the probability of CTE students enrolling in and graduating from community college and enrolling in university. However, Hawaii is just one of 14 states that the nationally recognized Credentials Matter initiative notes that does not report data on credentials attainment. Quality data is critical for ensuring investments in our career readiness programs are delivering real benefits to students. That means students have access to programs that open doors for them in local careers in high demand, high wage, and high growth industries. Given the increasing need to maximize the impact of every dollar that goes to our schools, SB 516 is a critical bill as our schools play a big role in Hawaii's economic recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 811. First up, it is HSTA.
Hi, Mitzi Higa speaking for Corey Rosenlee, Hawaii State Teachers Association. We stand in strong support of this bill. Just to put it very briefly, it's not happening. It needs to happen. COVID cases should be reported by school in a general manner, such as how many staff, how many students. The community needs to know, we need to know, and that's the way we can be helpful and prevent it from spreading. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Lynn Otoguro.
Aloha, Chair Luke and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing this measure. I'm a former Deputy Attorney General, but I retired as a teacher in July, and I'm a mother of a current teacher. I've been following our school's response to COVID since August. With the present system of reporting cases by school complex, it's unclear which school is affected, and questions have been raised about whether all cases at schools are included, and this causes a lack of disclosure leads to speculation and anxiety, which can be seen online and in comments. When things are uncertain, people want and need information from their government. What most people seek is to have agencies tell them straight out what and where the problems are and what we can do to solve them. Then you have a sense that someone is watching out for you and that maybe you don't have to worry so much. This bill will help provide information to members of the public and policymakers so that they can better understand how COVID-19 is affecting each school and community and make decisions to keep themselves, schools, and communities safer. Please support this bill. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 813. First up is Hawaii State Public Charter School Commission.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, members of the committee. Yvonne Lau on behalf of the Charter School Commission. We stand on our written testimony in strong support, and we thank you for hearing this bill. I'm available for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 10044. First up, it is DOE.
Good afternoon, again, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. Terry Ushijima testifying on behalf of Dr. Christina Kishimoto, Superintendent of the Department of Education. The department appreciates the amendment to implement the inclusion of financial literacy in their personal transition plan beginning the 2022 to 2023 school year to allow time for the high schools to prepare for this requirement. We stand on our written testimony and offer comments. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next up, it is Hawaii Credit Union League. Okay, thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Peruso.
I have a quick question for the department. Terry, when you say that the bill was amended to include financial literacy in the PTP, are there also standards that students have to meet? And is that just the high school PTP?
The high school does have guidelines, and they have a program that they follow. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking if there are standards.
I have Sanji Casinas, who might be able to answer that better than me.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair. Right now for the personal transition plan, there are career and technical education standards that schools needs to address regarding establishing for students to establish their career goals. But with regards to financial literacy, no, there's no particular standards, but there are related academic standards that students can address to do that.
Do you plan to develop standards for that purpose?
I think we probably wouldn't need the year to plan for that to see. Yeah, so we would probably need the year to plan.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, Representative Kobayashi?
How do you interpret the word each student? Does that mean that each student must have some financial literacy included yearly, or that the financial literacy be included in each student's plan?
Okay, go ahead, Angie.
So each student, so the personal transition plan is a graduation requirement. It starts from when a student enters their 9th grade year, and it's earned by the first semester of their senior year. So curriculum for financial literacy can be addressed anywhere from the 9th to 12th grade year. And some schools are already doing that. When I was a PTP coordinator at a high school.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, Representative Bronco?
Currently, our high school students, when they graduate, is it expected for them to be able to balance a checkbook and open a savings or checking account? Is that taught currently?
Currently, if they're taking certain elective classes where they address that, so it may be that schools who are offering advanced guidance, that's curriculum that's addressed. If they're taking business or business courses, marketing courses, those kinds of, that curriculum could be addressed. But is it addressed by all students? Currently not.
Thank you.
So the PTP would be a venue where where all students can get the curriculum so that they can write a check.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill. Senate Bill 1353. First up, it is Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. The Hawaii State Energy Office supports SB 1353 SD1 HD1. We appreciate the intent behind expanding and clarifying our responsibilities, and particularly the amendments under SD1 HD1. The changes involve clarifying the direct connection of HSEO's activities to achieving the zero emissions clean economy target, which HSEO understands to be economic development, and ensuring that all of the duties of the Chief Energy Officer are transferred to the HSEO, and also assigning HSEO additional responsibilities relating to advocacy and program recommendation, providing technical assistance, and facilitating workforce development. HSEO notes that expanding and clarifying the office's responsibilities, as well as any potential federal stimulus for energy-related infrastructure that may come our way, would require additional staffing and funding as HSEO continues to face shrinking resources. In addition to elimination of several positions, that there are measures to transfer all of our energy security special funds to the general fund. While there are measures underway to accommodate alternate support for the currently funded EV charging systems rebate program, HSEO continues to need a special fund expenditure ceiling over the next 2 fiscal years for $600,000 and $400,000 respectively, because the office has been awarded a FEMA Advanced Assistance subgrant through HIEMA, in which the Energy Office requires working capital to expend funds to contract for the development of prioritized energy mitigation strategies for critical Oahu facilities to help Oahu communities become more energy resilient to hazards. Expenditures from the special fund would then be reimbursable with federal funds from HIEMA. Without the upfront expenditure of special fund monies, HSEO risks not receiving the federal contribution of $600,000 and $400,000 respectively, and consequently makes Hawaii less competitive for future rounds of federal disaster preparedness funding regarding energy security and resiliency, such as with the upcoming FEMA's approximately $1 billion Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities competitive grants, for which the advanced assistant grant, like the one we've received, are heavily factored in its evaluation criteria. HSEO also plans to contribute up to $200,000 of project personnel cost as cost match. However, additional proposed reductions in HSEO staff positions further limit the office's ability to contribute the required cost match for competitive federal grants. Thank you for your consideration of these points and for the opportunity to testify. I stand by for questions.
Thank you. Next up is Climate Protectors Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We appreciate the opportunity to testify. This is an extremely important bill. The climate mission of the Energy Office is key to achieving the kind of climate relief that we need in Hawaii, the leadership that we need. Climate Protectors Hawaii is a group that's focused on the climate and helping Hawaii lead toward something that the rest of the world can follow. And so we very much need the leadership of the State Energy Office as set forth in the HD1, not in the SD1, but in the HD1 bill. And we strongly urge the committee to pass that. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair Luke, to testify on this important bill. I'll stand by for questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 246. First up, it is Department of Education.
Aloha, Chair Luke, committee members, Brooke Connor, the CIO for the Department of Education, testifying on behalf of the superintendent. We will stand on our written testimony offering comments on the proposed draft that was posted. We are, of course, available to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next up is Dags.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. Kurt Okaguro, the Comptroller. Department of Accounting and General Services stands on a written testimony in support of Measure SB 246. We're happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lastly, Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the Finance Committee. Jay Putai for DOT. We stand on our testimony in support.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1137. First up, it is DHS.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, members of the committee. My name is Daisy Hartsfield, and I'm the administrator for the Social Services Division of the Department of Human Services. This bill provides an excellent way to use anticipated federal reimbursements in the Spouse and Child Abuse Special Fund to provide the funding for preventive services required under the Federal Families First Prevention Act. The department stands by its written testimony in strong support and asks that the amendments requested be adopted. The department thanks you for hearing this bill, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1139. First up, it is Department of Health.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen. My name is, and members of the committee, sorry. My name is Tammy Whitney. I'm with the Department of Health Medical Cannabis Registry Program, and the department stands on its written testimony in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Cliff Otto.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this measure. My name is Dr. Clifton Otto, and I stand in support of this bill with some changes. I just wanted to emphasize the change that I am proposing, which is a very minor one. I'm asking that the one full-time position in this measure be for a cannabinoid medicine specialist. I know previously this bill said 3 full-time positions. which I would also support. But the issue is not just understaffing at the OMCCR. It's also the lack of expertise on the subject of the medical use of cannabis and the science behind this medical use. And right now, OMCCR is getting a lot of its guidance and information from the dispensaries themselves and from regulators in other states. And I would just like to point out that Hawaii is very unique in its population diversity and its geographic location. So I don't think we can really turn to other states to get advice on this. So that's why I am making this suggestion for making this a specific position. And I think because this is an appropriations request, I have made this testimony before all the other chairs on this measure. And I'm guessing that they deferred final decision on this to your committee, since such a position would have impact on the financial effectiveness and implementation of regulatory oversight. Thank you for the opportunity to make this testimony, and I will be available for any questions.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1350. First up, it is Office of Elections.
Good afternoon. The Office of Elections will stand on its written testimony, providing comments, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next is Attorney General's Office.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee, Deputy Attorney General Lori Tanigawa. The department submitted written testimony, which we ask the committee to consider making 2 amendments to the bill. If there are any questions regarding our testimony, I'm available. Otherwise, thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 793. First up, it is State Council on Developmental Disabilities.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, committee members. My name is Daintree Bartoldes. I am the Executive Administrator for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. To allow we are in strong support of Senate Bill 793 SD1 HD1. To allow individuals to be paid less than minimum wage based solely on the fact they have a disability is a civil rights issue. Like the Jim Crow's laws or the Japanese internment camps were wrong, so is this law, which came about in 1938. We respectfully ask that you remove this law from Hawaii's books by passing SB 793 SD1 HD1. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next up is HSTA.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke. We stand in strong support of this measure. Speaking for Corey Rosenlee, President of Hawaii State Teachers Association, it is unacceptable that we allow disabled individuals to be paid a sub-minimum wage. As previously stated, set in 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act is outdated, and our Hawaii HRS 387.9 needs to be updated. It has a mistaken idea that employees who are disabled are less productive than their able-bodied peers. And that is not true. There's technology available nowadays. There's a lot of things that our former students can do, and they should not be paid sub-minimum wage. Please repeal this law. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Hope Services.
Aloha, my name is Kristen Alice from Hope Services, Homeless Services Agency on Hawaii Island, and we strongly support this bill for a lot of the reasons that were mentioned by the previous testifiers, and also because the law as it stands now just widens the gap between the haves and the have-nots even more. We serve a lot of people who have developmental and other disabilities and have a hard time paying rent, paying for their basic necessities, paying for anything, and it really isn't fair. It's one of those laws you see and you can't even believe it's real. So I would strongly urge you to pass this bill, and let's make it fair, let's make it right. Thank you so much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you. Next up is Raynell Moley.
Soul Ray Duncan.
Okay, Soul Ray Duncan representing Raynell Mole.
Hi.
Hi, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Soul Ray Duncan. I support this bill. Please please, please pass this bill for people to get equal pay. And I mean, people for disabilities, with disabilities. It will put us all on a level playing field in terms of pay. Thank you for my for my opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Next up is Pili Teo.
Good afternoon, Chair Look and members of the community. My name is Pili Teo Jr. I am in strong supportive of SB 793. I may walk a little different than others. My speech may be hard to understand at times, but that doesn't mean I do not work just as hard as someone without disability. My boss has always told me I am their hardest worker. I always arrive early and I never miss work. To have a law allowing individuals to be paid less than minimum wage just because they have a big disability is wrong. It's discrimination and makes me feel like I am worth less just because I have a disability. Please change this and pass SB 793. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is Tim Rankin.
Okay. Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. Chair Luke and committee members. My name is Timothy Rankin, and I am the Hawaii Self-Advocacy Advisory Council Vice President. I strongly support Senate Bill 793. In 1999, I worked at a bike shop on Oahu for 3 years. I was paid less than everyone else, and I was never moved up in my time there. I felt I worked harder than any others, but I was paid less than everyone. It made me feel lesser and felt bad about myself. While I was there, I left because I did not feel valued. Thank you for your time and your cooperation.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Now let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1015, DAGS.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Kurt Otaguro, State Comptroller. DAGS stands on its written testimony in support of SB 1015. We're already doing some of this, Chair, with regard to looking at spaces, office leases. What this measure would provide is some authority behind our decisions to tell programs that are in the DAGS managed facilities to actually downsize or clean up. And that's really the purpose of this measure. With the pandemic and work from home or teleworking, we find it's an appropriate time to do that. We ask that you provide the financial support for us to do it quicker and to support the state's need to reduce its operating budget. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much, Comptroller. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Kobayashi.
For Comptroller, can you meet the 25% lease space requirement?
This measure would provide for just DAGS managed facilities. We have 80 of them. We think that will be achievable. We're already on our way to do that. We've already worked with the Attorney General's office, Department of Human Services. We are working with the Department of Education for some of these spaces. So we already have targeted spaces that we are reducing, have reduced or are in the close to reduce office spaces. The problem, Representative, is that sometimes there are spaces in current offices that we could make space. And that's just encouraging the departments that have that space to give it up. And that's really what this bill is to do. So we believe that if our budgets are funded and our positions are filled, that we will have the resources necessary to do this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 375. First up, it is Department of Transportation.
Aloha Chair, Jade Butai for DOT. We stand on our testimony in support and thank you for providing general funds needed to complete the study.
Thank you. Next up is Makakilo Kapolei Neighborhood Board Transportation Committee. Okay, thank you. That's all the testifiers. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the last bill, Senate Bill 772. First up, it is DLNR.
Hey, good afternoon. David Smith with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. The department stands on its written testimony and support, and we're here to answer any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Any questions? If not, can we move on to the next agenda, or do you have to let the second agenda folks come in?
We're going to switch out at the recess before decision making.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll recess for decision making. Okay, recess for decision making. Thank you. Committee on Finance will reconvene for decision-making on our 1:30 agenda. After we're done with the 1:30 agenda, we'll go right into our 2 p.m. agenda. So first up is Senate Bill 512, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 512 SD2 HD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass as is. Noting all members present, any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All present members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 263, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to take the proposed HD2 and also as in the HD2 in the first section, transferring the oversight of Made in Hawaii program will be to a blank department or a blank agency as opposed to DBED. We don't know if DBED is the correct appropriate agency and technical non-substantive amendments. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 263 SD2 HD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All present members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 579, Senate Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD1, blanking out the amount and effective date. Any discussion? Representative Peruso.
Yeah, so I have some real concerns about the level of planning that has already been completed as a basis for this request. So I'm going to be voting no. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Representative Wahlberger.
Similarly, I have never imagined someone would show up that unprepared for 9 figures in financing. So I'm also unable to support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Yes, Representative Kobayashi.
WR for the same reasons.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 579 SD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present. I have reservations by Representative Kobayashi. Any other members voting reservations? Representative Tam also votes reservations. Any other reservations? I have no from Representative Peruso and Representative Wildberger. Any other members voting no? All other members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you very much. Next up is Senate Bill 579, Senate Draft. Oh, I did that already. Next one is Senate Bill 1421, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2 with a defective effective date. Any discussion? Representative Peruso.
I'm curious about the HD2, but I'm going to be voting no on this because I have deep concerns about dual use technology and the further militarization of our economic space.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1421 SD2 HD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? I have a no vote from Representative Peruso. Any other members voting no? All other members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 76, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Representative Sayama.
With reservations, with brief comments, I like to say that, I really believe that our applicants and the process in which the BOE finds a superintendent must reflect the unique educational environment that Hawaii possesses. And while I do strongly believe that, I also believe that it is the BOE's kuleana and expertise which allow for the selection of a qualified candidate for the superintendent position. And so with that, I will be respectfully voting with reservations.
Thank you very much. Representative Peruso.
Same basis, same request.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 76 SD2 HD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass as is. Noting all members present. I have reservations by Representative Peruso and Representative Sayama, and also Representative McDermott. Any other members voting Representative Tam. So I have reservations by Peruso, Representative Peruso, Sayama, Tam, and McDermott. Any other members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All other members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 242, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2 with a sunset of the special fund in 5 years and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion, Representative Kobayashi?
I think the special fund is not understood by the prior committee.
Yeah.
And I think also that the reporting requirements are too onerous and detailed. I mean, it's easy to ask for details, but it's very hard to collect them. For each class, to have that many details is just ridiculous. So I'm WR.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Representative Peruso.
So I have concerns about the way in which this legislation undermines the authority of the board. And I think I'll be voting WR on those grounds. And I do think that it does open a door to proliferation of this kind of legislation, which I don't think that it is our role to be dictating curriculum or content.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 242 SD 2 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendment, noting reservations by Representative Kobayashi and Representative Pruso. Any other members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 516, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 516 SD 1 HD 2, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservation? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 811, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 811 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All present members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 813, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 813 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1004, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1004 HD 2, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1353, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1353 SD 1 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 246, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, adopting the proposed HD2 and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 246 SD 1 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1137, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, inserting a sunset for the special fund and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1137 SD 2 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1139, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1139 SD 2 HD 1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye. Chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1350, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Representative Kobayashi.
I would suggest looking at the AG opinion about permanent residents. I think prior committee didn't even know what it was doing when it wrote that section. I think a defective date would also help.
This one needs funding, so it can't pass anyway. So
Mm.
that's why we're not defecting it. Okay, any other discussion? I will let the last committee know. Yeah. Any
Tell-
other discussion?
Tell them that I held back in being more critical.
Okay, I'm sure he appreciates that. Okay, with that, any other discussion? If not, please.
Yeah,
Members,
Members voting on Senate Bill 1350 SD1 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Try to stop laughing some more. Okay, next up is Senate Bill 793, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 793 SD1 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1015, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1015 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Did I do 375?
No, we
Okay. Next up is Senate Bill 375, Senate Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as a HD1, removing the preamble section and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? And the reason why I'm picking out the preamble is because the bill is already defective. I don't have any other things to change, but we need a HD, otherwise it goes up to the governor. So that's why we're taking out the preamble, which actually doesn't really mean anything. Okay, any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 375 SD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 772, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, blanking out the fee amounts and effective date and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 772 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Okay, now going on to our decision-making agenda, Senate Bill 266, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. At the request of the speaker, he has put out a press release relating to this bill. He has instructed finance to defer as some of the things that he had initially intended for the bill to achieve has been achieved in working with the administration and the mayors. So defer. Okay, next up is Senate Bill 827, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1, breast cancer screening. This one will also be deferred based on the testimony from the insurance commissioner. There needs to be a sunrise study, and if we don't have a sunrise study, this would be vetoed. So we have already relayed that information to the subject matters, and they will be working on a sunrise study before we do a insurance mandate. So defer. Next bill, Senate Bill 765, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2. We'll be removing the sections. Let me see. New money intro. Okay, we'll be removing sections on page 23, which is subsection D, subsection E and F. The reason for that is the new fees goes into various special funds, and we're trying to control special funds at this point. So we're deleting language and technical non-substantive cleanup language to conform to what I just said. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 765 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, Noting all members present, any members voting reservations? Any reservations by Representative Caruso? Any other members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All the members vote aye, Chair. Recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 969, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. This is animal fur products. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2. And this would, because this would have prohibited manufacture and importation as of July of this year, that might be a little bit onerous, just in case retailers have already ordered things on stock. So the prohibition will start on January 1st. 2022 to allow the retailer some time to stop the orders. The other thing is if the prohibition for manufacture and importation is in place, we will be removing the section relating to the prohibition of sales, only because if they already have it in inventory and nobody's buying it, it would be, what do they call it? Like a takings clause. If we tell them, okay, I know you got it in inventory, but now you cannot even sell it. So that would be onerous. So we'll be taking that portion since they won't be able to import it anyway. The other part was there was a lot of discussion about who should be enforcing this section. You can avoid the whole enforcement section by making it a criminal activity. So as opposed to a fee base. So the penalty for violation of this section will be a misdemeanor, which will trigger the police department and prosecutors from enforcing it as opposed to the Attorney General's office. So we will be removing enforcement by the AG. And we will also be removing the section that forces DCCA to do educational material to retailers. DCCA is not in a position to do that kind of educational material because especially, DCCA is self-funded and I'm not sure where they would even get money to do educational material. So I'm not sure why that language was put in. So this is in concurrence with the subject matter and technical non-substantive changes and other cleanup language to conform to what I just described. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 969 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, Chair. Recommendation adopted.
Hold on. Next up is Senate Bill 659, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. This is LIHTC. Recommendation is to pass as a HD3, inserting defective date in all other sections and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 659 SD2 HD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All members vote aye, Chair. Recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 2, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, inserting language that if HHFDC triggers the 99-year lease for a property that wants to be developed, that property has to give first preference to people on the DHHL wait list and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? Senator Caruso.
Well, I am interested in the HD2, but I am still gonna vote with reservations because I haven't seen that language. So just to be safe. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Representative Bronco.
I've seen this bill throughout many other of our committees. I have been voting WR because of concerns that the need to house Native Hawaiians is separated from Native Hawaiians' claims to our ancestral lands. But I do applaud the chair for these amendments. Still will be voting WR, but I thank you very much, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you. Representative Tam.
Thank you, Chair. I mentioned earlier that I might be voting no, but I will be voting with reservations for the reasons that were just stated.
Thank you. Representative Martin.
Same, I'm switching from no to reservations. Thanks for taking care of it.
Thank you. any other discussion? Representative Eli.
Same, same.
Thank
WR.
you. Thank you. I do think that the committee, as we grapple on these many issues, we need to find ways to take care of the DHHL wait list and, take care of the housing needs for Native Hawaiians. And I am thankful that this bill came to finance because we were able to figure out, okay, how do we expand the inventory of lands? And we thought, okay, this might be kind of a different way as opposed to people on the wait list being limited to the DHHL land. So we'll see how the discussion goes after that. Okay, Representative Hope.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate making the amendments. I don't know how this works with removing the people off of the wait list if it's not a homelands, but I do definitely appreciate moving the conversation forward. Thank you.
So it will not be moving people off the wait list, but I do think that while they're on the wait list, they still deserve opportunity to be housed. Because, we can't just leave people on the wait list without giving them the opportunity to be housed, especially if they meet the income requirement of HHFDC. Okay, if not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 2 SD 2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present. I have reservations by Representative Bronco, Eli, Martin, Peruso, and Tam. Any other members voting reservations? I have Representative Holt and Representative Wildberger also votes reservations. Any other members voting reservations? Okay, so I'll read this list again. Bronco, Eli, Holt, Martin, Peruso, Tam, Wildberger, reservations. Any members voting no? Okay. Other members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention that this had the concurrence of all the subject matter chairs. Okay, with that, let's go to the next bill, Senate Bill 39, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take a vote.
Members voted on Senate Bill 39 SD 2 HD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Reservations by Representative Peruso and Representative Waldberger. Any other members voting reservations? Any members voting no? All other members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 866, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. This violates ARP, so this will be deferred. Next up is Senate Bill 142, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 142 SD 2 HD1. Recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present. Any members voting reservations? Any members voting no? I have a no from Representative Peruso. Any other members voting no? All other members vote aye, chair recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, members and testifiers. Now we will now be moving to our 2 p.m. agenda. First up is Senate Bill 179, House Draft, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. First up, it is the Attorney General's office.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke and Vice Chair Cullen and members of the committee. This is Deputy Attorney General Jennifer Waihee Polk on behalf of the Department of the Attorney General. Well, we have submitted testimony regarding our concern about a restriction placed on the appropriation provided in Section 4 of the bill. So we have turned in written testimony, and I don't want to take up too much of the committee's time, but I'm here if you want me to go into detail with our concerns or if you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much. Next up is DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Ian Hirokawa with DLNR Land Division. We'll stand on our testimony in support of the measure, but I'll be available for any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support.
Very much. Next up is Ulupono.
Thank you, Chair. Ulupono will stand on its testimony in strong support.
Very much. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 506. First up, it is Waihawa General Hospital. Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Brian Cunningham. I serve as the CEO for Waihewood General Hospital, and I stand in strong support on behalf of SB 506 relating to the issuance of the special purpose revenue bonds to assist Waihewood General Hospital. I would stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 628, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. First up, it is the Attorney General's Office.
Good afternoon, Chair Luke, members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
Diane Tyra, Deputy Attorney General. The Department of the Attorney General has submitted comments highlighting the exemption of the Oahu Regional System Board from certain administrative provisions of Hawaii revised statutes. I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you. And I apologize for my voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is HHSC.
Chair, are you referring to HHSC Oahu Region or HHSC Corporate?
Mr. Sonata, yes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen. My name is Sean Sonata. I am the CAO for the Oahu Region. We recognize that some very important positions have changed on this measure. Nevertheless, we do stand on our written testimony in support of the bill. And I guess I'll modify it somewhat to say that we stand in strong support of the ultimate aim of the bill. I'm sure there will be questions for us at the end of this, so I'll stand by for those questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all the testifiers. Any questions? Not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 1340. First up, it is DCCA PVL Hawaii Medical Board.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair Lonnie Kiyoki, Executive Officer of the Hawaii Medical Board. The board will stand on its written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Honolulu Fire Department.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, committee members, Mike Jones, Battalion Chief of the Honolulu Fire Department. We support this bill, the intent of this bill to provide licensure and certification to firefighters and ocean safety personnel. We do want to place emphasis on Section 11, which makes the recommendation for an additional level of EMT licensure specific to personnel who are National Registry certified who do not work for an ambulance service providing transport. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I stand by for questions.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the next bill, Senate Bill 935. First up, it is Pisces.
Aloha, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. We stand behind our submitted testimony, appreciating the intent of the bill and with our suggested recommendations for amendments to the bill to transfer Pisces from DBIT to the University of Hawaii in Hilo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers. Any questions? If not, let's move on to the last bill, Senate Bill 932. First up, it is Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Gwen Yamamoto, Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority stands on our written testimony in strong support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is DCCA Division of Consumer Advocacy.
Aloha and good afternoon, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the committee. Dean Yoshino with Division of Consumer Advocacy. We stand on our written testimony offering comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is Climate Protectors Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair Luke, Vice Chair Cullen, and members of the Finance Committee. Climate Protectors Hawaii is a group that is dedicated to the climate emergency that we face. We reached a new record this weekend on Mauna Loa of 421 parts per million. So climate change is here and we need to get on it now because in the future we're going to see rising sea levels, etc. This bill is a good bill because it provides some financing mechanisms. It expands on existing revolving fund in a way that would allow additional purchases of solar and electric vehicles without additional money having to be pumped in. So I really strongly urge the committee to adopt this bill because it provides needed financing. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers on Zoom. Any questions? Representative Kobayashi.
I'm wondering how much money is currently in the revolving fund?
Representative, this is Gwen. So I'm assuming that that particular question is regarding the state revolving fund?
Yes.
Yes, so there's $50 million in the state revolving fund. Currently, only $3 million is available. More becomes available as the loans get paid down. We have 4 loans out right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, let's recess for decision making. Committee on Finance will come to order to do decision-making for our 2 p.m. agenda. First up, it is Senate Bill 179, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? Please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 179 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 506, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to put in the money amount. I believe it's 12 million and effective date July 1 to 2021 and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 506 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Next up is Senate Bill 628, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 628 SD2 HD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1340, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1340 SD2 HD2, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 935, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, putting a new appropriation section to provide funds for Pisces at UH Hilo. And thanks to Representative Tam for bringing that up, and the effective date and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 935 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 932, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. Recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 932 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass as is, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Okay, so the next three bills are bills we heard previously. So first up, it is Senate Bill 1101, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. This would have taken funds out of the HHRF after discussing with the insurance commissioner and with the agreement and concurrence of the CPC chair. Recommendation is to pass as a HD2, and the funds will come out of general funds and not HHRF. And technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1101 SD2 HD1, recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments, noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no, all members vote aye, chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1329, Senate Draft 2, House Draft 1. House Draft 2, sorry. Recommendation is to pass as a HD3, and with the concurrence of the two initial chairs, we will be removing the sections on page 2, line 19, to page 3, line 2, which essentially would have awarded the bid to the bid protester, which would encourage more bid protests. So we'll be removing that section. Instead, we will be adding a section which was part of House Bill 1054, House Draft 1, which would have included a bid bond requirement. Right now, the bid bond requirement is only $10,000, which is basically nothing. So that bill would require a 1 to 2% to be put into an escrow amount in order to discourage frivolous bid protests and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? Not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1329 SD2 HD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no. All members vote aye. Chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Next up is Senate Bill 1053, Senate Draft 2. Recommendation is to pass as a HD1 after we defer this bill. We have become aware, thanks to CBED manager, that they have been awarded $1 million from U.S. Economic Development Administration to help small businesses that have community economic development impact. But because of this restriction in CBED's ability to provide funding to small businesses specifically for this purpose, the Attorney General has recommended that we make this change. So this is so that they can spend the $1 million EDA grant from the federal government. Let me see. And then HD1, but then we will be removing the section that that has the, I think, like a $10,000, was it $100,000 amount, because we gotta just put in a HD1, and I couldn't figure out what, because this one didn't even have a preamble, so I don't know what part to take out. So that's why we're taking out the dollar amount on page 1 and technical non-substantive changes. Any discussion? If not, please take the vote.
Members voting on Senate Bill 1053 SD2. Recommendation of the chair is to pass with amendments. Noting all members present, any members voting reservations, any members voting no. All members vote aye. Chair, recommendation adopted.
Thank you. Hearing is adjourned.